At 63, the tragedy of Jordan Peterson is beyond heartbreaking. Health updates. Jordan Peterson was born on June 12, 1962, in the quiet prairie town of Fairview, Alberta, Canada. A small place, surrounded by long winters, open skies, and the kind of silence that forces a person to think deeply about life. As a child, he wasn't known for loudness or rebellion. Instead, there was something else, an intensity. Teachers noticed it. Friends remembered it. Even back then, he seemed like someone who was always searching for answers to questions most people never even asked. What makes a human being strong? What makes them fall apart? Those questions followed him through his youth. As a young man, Peterson spent countless nights reading philosophy, psychology, religion, and history. Not casually but obsessively. While others were building ordinary careers, he was trying to understand the darkest and brightest corners of the human mind. Eventually, that path led him into psychology, where he became a professor, a clinical psychologist, and later a public figure whose lectures reached millions of people across the world. To many of his followers, Peterson wasn't just a professor. He was a voice of order in chaos. His lectures about responsibility, suffering, and meaning resonated with people who felt lost. Young men wrote to him saying his words had helped them stand up, clean their rooms, repair broken lives. Audiences filled theaters just to hear him speak about ancient myths and modern struggles. But behind every public voice, there is a private life. And sometimes, the cost of carrying other people's burdens becomes invisible, until it isn't. By the late 2010s, Peterson's life had transformed dramatically. His books were international bestsellers. His lectures were watched by tens of millions online. Interviews, debates, tours. His schedule became relentless. Cities blurred together. Airplanes, hotels, stages. Again and again. From the outside, it looked like unstoppable success. But success often hides exhaustion. Close to him, people began noticing the strain. Peterson himself spoke openly about stress and the emotional toll of constant public scrutiny. Every word he said was dissected. Every lecture debated. Supporters praised him as a guiding voice, while critics attacked him relentlessly. The pressure never stopped. Then something happened that few people saw coming. In 2019, his family faced a devastating crisis. His wife, Tammy, was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of cancer. Suddenly, the man who spent decades explaining resilience was facing a deeply personal test of it. Hospitals replaced lecture halls. Anxiety replaced routine. For Peterson, the uncertainty was overwhelming. What happens when the person who teaches strength suddenly finds himself surrounded by fear? Around the same time, Peterson was prescribed medication to manage severe anxiety and stress. What began as medical treatment slowly turned into something far more complicated. The medication, benzodiazepines, are known for helping people cope with intense anxiety, but they can also create dependency. And in Peterson's case, the situation escalated. The man who had spent years warning about the dangers of chaos found himself trapped in a storm inside his own body. His family later revealed how severe the struggle had become. Peterson experienced extreme physical reactions, unbearable withdrawal symptoms, and a medical battle that forced him into long periods of recovery. At one point, he disappeared from public life entirely. For someone whose voice had once filled lecture halls around the world, the silence was shocking. Where did he go? Was he recovering or losing the battle? Rumors spread online. Some said he would never return. Others wondered whether the psychological weight of years in the spotlight had finally broken him. For months, the uncertainty lingered like a shadow. And yet, in the middle of that darkness, something remarkable happened. Peterson survived. The recovery process was slow, painful, and deeply personal. His family helped guide him through treatments across different countries. There were setbacks, days where progress felt impossible. But gradually, piece by piece, he began to rebuild. When he eventually reappeared publicly, many viewers noticed something different. The voice was still there. The ideas were still there. But there was also vulnerability. A man who once analyzed suffering from a scholarly distance had now lived through a very real form of it. The experience had changed him, not just physically, but emotionally. And today, at 63 years old, Peterson continues to speak, write, and lecture again. But the story of his health struggles remains a reminder that even the strongest voices can face moments of collapse. It raises a difficult question. What happens to the people we look to for guidance when they themselves fall into darkness? Are they supposed to be unbreakable? Or does their humanity make their message even more real? Jordan Peterson's journey is not just about lectures, books, or debates. It's about a man who spent decades studying the human condition, only to be forced to confront its fragility in the most personal way possible. And perhaps the real tragedy isn't that he struggled. Perhaps the real tragedy is how often we forget that the people who speak about strength are human too. Because behind every public figure, every teacher, every voice of reason, there is a person quietly fighting battles we may never fully see. And the question that lingers now is this: after everything he has endured, what comes next?